We've got Mike Archuleta, Chief Information Officer, BridgeCare Health Network, Mount San Rafael. Dr. Benoit Desjardins, MD, Associate Professor of Radiology, Penn Medicine, and Joe Searcy, CISO, HIPAA Security Officer at Element 3 Health. I noticed that, Michael, you haven't got your video on, but are you there on audio? We are now all there. Perfect, perfect.
Yes, sir.
Well, I'll hand over to Richard Staynings to lead us off on our fantastic panel.
Well, thank you very much. So we've assembled a great panel of thought leaders here today. CIOs, MDs, and associate professors, CISOs, CSOs, all working in the healthcare space to continue our conversations around how do we develop AI and automation strategy for tomorrow's healthcare organization. So before we get going, I'd like to kick off and in a simple 60-second, 30-second, I'd like to invite each panelist to introduce themselves and tell us where they work and what it is that keeps them up at night. Esmond, you're first on my list. Why don't you start, please?
Sure. So I work in Boston, Massachusetts for Steward Healthcare. It's a 9-state national for-profit healthcare system. We have about 50,000 employees, about 35 regional hospitals. What's keeping me up at night isn't just COVID and various related issues. It's also just the sheer pace of change and momentum that we're trying to do to keep going. So before the bad guys get to us, you know, it's really a question of overcoming inertia, keeping that momentum going before the bad guys find your holes and your weaknesses before you do.
Cool, great. Powell, you're next on my list.
Okay, thank you. I've been a CISO for over 12 years at several hospitals and healthcare networks. Currently, I'm the interim CISO for Centura Health in Colorado, and I'm on a 7-month contract, so I'm finalizing my contract this month. I just found out this morning I'll be starting a 2-year contract in Southern California as a CISO. They're still working on the paperwork, so I can't let it be known at this time. But nevertheless, contracting has been a lot of fun because I have the opportunity to jump around quite a bit. And but what's keeping me up is in the healthcare arena. Obviously, the transition from on-prem to remote. Obviously, IT is doing a great job, but the physicians and other departments, it's a challenge, and so far it's all working pretty good, and we hope that it continues that direction.
Cool, great, thank you. Mike, you're next on my my list in terms of order of videos up here, and you're all jumping around, so this is going to be interesting. Hopefully I don't invite the same person up twice.
Well, excellent, Richard. Thank you very much. My name is Michael Archuleta. I'm the Chief Information Officer here at BridgeCare Health Network, Mount San Rafael. We're basically part of a healthcare hospital system here in Southern Colorado, which consists of 5 facilities. That's 4 25-bed critical access and 1 325-bed level 2 trauma center. So some items that really keep me up right now is, I mean, the acceleration of digital transformation has been a massive change, you know, especially in the healthcare industry. And the attacks of opportunity, I think, have been one of those items that have really affected this overall industry. We're seeing hackers becoming more sophisticated. We're seeing them just come in. I mean, COVID has been one of those items that these individuals aren't stopping, and they're not stopping at anything. And that's why I always basically state that the attacks of opportunity are such a critical component. And that's why healthcare has to be leading the pack when it comes to acceleration, when it comes to transformation. You know, I always state that, you know, when we look at healthcare, we see healthcare as being one of those industries that have been behind the curve when it comes to technology advancements. You look at the oil and gas, you look at the finance, 2 years advanced more than healthcare. This is truly the service that we're basically doing at times for our actual patients. We need to continue to basically be leading the pack, bringing in innovation and bringing those transformational changes that really improve on outcomes. So those are some specific items that really keep me up at night moving forward from there.
Great, thank you, thank you. Joe, nice to see you again. I think you and I were on a panel in Denver earlier this year with Phelan.
We were. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, perfect.
Yes, perfect. Thank you for having me. So I'm Joe Searcy. I'm the Chief Security Officer and HIPAA Security Officer for Element 3 Health. Also, I run a security consulting business with my wife, as well as I'm the president and founder and CEO of a veteran nonprofit here in Denver called Joint Forces Veterans Alliance. So I definitely have my plate full. What keeps me up at night, this whole transformation to work from home, and making sure that our connections are secure on unsecured networks, and the fact that we've seen an increase of roughly about 15,000% in phishing over the last or since COVID started. So we're definitely keeping our job security going with all this work, and glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Great. And last but not least, Benoit Desjardins, double doctor, MD and PhD.
Thank you. So I'm Benoit Desjardins. I'm an associate professor at the University of Pennsylvania in radiology and medicine. I'm mainly a radiologist. You know, I read cases all day long. My PhD was in artificial intelligence, so that relates to this field. I also am a CISSP, so I'm very much interested in anything cybersecurity. And I've been working in this area for many years. The main thing that keeps me up at night is my wife snoring, but from a medical point of view, it's mainly, you know, making sure that I haven't missed anything on the cases that I read during the day, because we read a zillion cases very, very fast, and we can't wait to get a second pair of eyes, automatic eyes from AI, when it's finally going to become available to kind of get an overview of the cases, pick up the small lung nodules, the insignificant findings that we might have omitted to describe in our reports. And of course, I'm worried about, you know, getting hacked, obviously.
I think we all are. And just as an FYI, we are recording this session, so you know, please, you know, be careful what you leave for your wife to watch. While I've got you there, perhaps you could kick us off with the first question, Benoit. As a practicing physician, as a radiologist, how is AI changing medicine, and what are the implications of this from a security perspective?
Well, medicine is undergoing massive changes these days. I mean, for the first time in history, we can digitize humans in many different aspects, you know, physiology, biology, anatomy, and we put all that information in electronic medical records. So we're generating a massive, massive amount of data that is just too massive for any of us mere humans to be able to understand and navigate through. And AI is being extensively used to help not only acquire the data, but process through these, you know, massive amounts of data to generate useful insights. So if you look at physiology aspects, typically we're talking about sensors that are usually wearable, they're usually connected to networks, and their role is to continuously measure every feature in the body, such as, you know, the heart rate and blood pressure. And the goal is to manage chronic disease. But that generates, you know, massive amount of data, and we need help to be able to monitor live this amount of data. And this is where AI helps a lot. For health monitoring, AI can track the data and really identify very quickly any abnormality in this data, and then generates alert or generate responses. Or if you have a device that is capable of, you know, giving therapy, for example, then give therapy, such as, you know, an ICD, pacemaker, or something like that. For biology, I mean, we've been able to sequence the genome since the 2000s. So each human has a different genome, and the difference in each genome explain diseases in humans. And we also have, you know, besides genomics, you have proteomics, which is, you know, sequencing all the proteins in the body, which has been going on for a long time, looking not only at their structure, but also their activity and their interaction. And these proteins act as biomarkers for different diseases. So the role of AI there is to analyze this, you know, massive amount of complex data, both three-dimensional and activity and interactions and all that stuff, to try to generate insights from these things in order to, say, help drug development, for example, or personalized medical treatment. So there's a lot of AI, for example, going on, trying to, you say researchers identify the 3D structures of some kind of protein in a cell. Well, AI starts looking at the massive databases of thousands of drugs and tries to figure out, okay, which drugs could interact better with these 3D structures that you're trying to look at. From an
yeah, I was going to say, so AI is impacting in a positive way patient outcomes, right? We're able to come up with a lot of new forms of diagnosis and treatments and medicines in order to treat the human condition and to improve patient well-being. And in the interest of time, sorry to cut you off there, Benoit, but I wanted to get to Mike. As a CIO of a hospital, Mike, what challenges does digital transformation mean to you? I'm thinking in terms of the role of a CIO in terms of managing a staff, in managing all the IT equipment, and managing a distributed staff, and the delivery of medical services that are provided by doctors like Benoit and his colleagues. How is that impacting you in Southern Colorado?
Absolutely. It's definitely a great question there, Richard. So as I always state, the acceleration of digital transformation is truly here. And healthcare organizations are really intensifying their focus on strategic planning for a digital future. And they're continuing to really prepare themselves to be ready to launch new initiatives, especially when this crisis passes. And that's been one of those specific items. And we've seen with COVID as well, too, on the importance that information technology basically brings into the organization. As I stated in my intro, healthcare has been one of those industries that has been behind the curve when it comes to technology advancements. But healthcare organizations, the healthcare industry is one of the most attacked sectors out there. Healthcare industry, again, is 2 years behind the curve when it comes to technology advancements. We as healthcare organizations need to realize that incorporating IT as a core component to the overall organizational strategy is not a technology makeover, but an actual business revolution. IT acts as an order taker versus a value maker. And again, too, Richard, IT can no longer be considered an actual cost center, but a strategic revenue contributor. And when I always state this, it's because we talk about technology, we talk about cybersecurity, we talk about artificial intelligence. These are all specific items that are items that cost the organization. How are we going to fund these specific projects? What is the understanding of the culture built within your organization? Do they understand digital transformation? Do they understand the importance of cybersecurity? Do they understand the importance of what artificial intelligence and predictive analytics basically brings into your organization, especially looking at it on a cybersecurity standpoint? These are specific items that need to be reculturalized. These need to be pointing over that IT has to be at the center point. IT has to be a core component. We need to utilize technology as an actual tool to continue to basically do the things we need to do. Just for example, when we look at artificial intelligence, when we look at predictive analytics, these are specific items that we focus on. We look at abnormalities within the network environment. We try to determine what an actual breach is. We're trying to predict an attack before it actually happens. And utilizing specific products like Cylera that have really given us the full visibility within our actual environment when it comes to the Internet of Things is such an important aspect, because having the full visibility really assists you in developing a plan to ensure mitigation of risks within the environment. Because again, when you look at medical devices and when you look at the overall Internet of Things, that is becoming an actual major problem. We again also need to make sure that we're continuing to incorporate that smart technology, that verification asset management, AI, all of these specific items that are going to take us to a much better place. But again, it starts with putting information technology as a core component to the organizational strategy moving forward to accelerate this specific industry.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I would say that technology and and security are now critical core components of healthcare delivery, whether we like it or not, right? The paradigm is shifted, you know, as Benoit mentioned, around his area in medical practice, right? Technology is leading in the diagnosis and treatment of patients. And we're seeing that with telehealth, right? With COVID, right? We're seeing that technology is front and front and center. But I want to move on to Esmond now. As a CISO, Esmond, of a multi-state, multi-site hospital system, you're probably getting calls from vendors and thought leaders all over the world, from all over the world, talking about AI. What does AI mean to you? What does it mean in a healthcare context?
Well, it means what's new is old, right? You know, at least it's replaced blockchain on the snake oil salesman bingo card. It means a lot. I mean, it basically boils down to a lot of machine learning. It's basically statistics and clever math to speed decision making. And you know, as much as we heard Michael and Benoit talk about the tremendous opportunities it's creating, there's also some pearls. It will enable you to make decisions faster, hopefully based upon good data, but you're going to live and die, maybe literally, based upon the integrity of that data set. As much as digital health is transforming medicine, and we have a huge opportunity given COVID to replace that last mile problem, and users are now having to communicate with us through digital platforms, and never mind their devices, but also now their consumer level phones and communication devices. It's a huge opportunity. So through COVID, we all had to step up and get our Zoom level conferencing technologies in play. We also have been forced for many, many years as associated with high tech to get our meaningful use API stage 3 platforms up and running from patient portals. We're also facing some pressure to get a lot of our data aggregated through these different cloud platforms. So there's a lot of vendors that are trying to sell me things, and I tend to be a little bit of a skeptic. Artificial intelligence means different things to different people. And Richard, I thought your presentation this morning was really good to define, well, what does it mean to you? And for me, it's a force enabler. It's using technology for good, but it's also accepting the fact that it can be misused for bad. As much as we're seeing it in healthcare right now, as you know, reducing that time to detect, to diagnose, that signal to noise ratio problem. We're also dealing with it on a nation state, if not a global level, where, you know, these massive disinformation campaigns are being used to undermine the US election. And the level of health acuity and understanding of our users and constituents are such that I'm a little skeptical that they will jump right to digital health when, you know, a certain percentage of my population wouldn't even show up and take a vaccine for some of these solutions that we desperately need them to take to overcome this pandemic issue we're dealing with. So for me, I'd love to see it. I think it's great for patient care and outcome. I also think it's great for automation, as Michael had talked about there. It's almost Darwinian. If we don't do this, we're not going to be able to stay on top of the tide of data. So
yeah, it's certainly a tide that's washing our way. Put it that way. Yeah, good. I want to move on to, thanks, Esmond. I want to move on to Powell to talk about what he's seeing as a CISO of another large healthcare system here in Colorado. But what are you seeing in terms of the current threat surface? How has COVID, how has work from home changed the operation of Centura Health? And what are you seeing?
Well, it's certainly been a challenge. Many of the presenters have brought up the point that artificial intelligence was on a path that was being well culturalized and it was being explained. It was it's a hard sell. And then all of a sudden we had the pandemic and priorities changed. And, you know, we focused on other areas. We focused on data. And Benoit, you mentioned it earlier that there is so much data. And unfortunately, initially, the data was incorrect and very hard to interpret. Therefore, our system, we prepped up, we over-purchased, we overestimated, And, you know, one would say, you know, that was proactive and a good thing and never bad. But from a dollar sense, that did cost us quite a bit. We purchased a lot of notepads and devices so people can communicate to patients. And we only used a fraction of those devices. And that did cost us a lot of money. So there's some challenges, but back specifically to your question of, you know, now that we're doing more remote work, I would say IT and security was properly prepared, but other departments were less prepared. And we had a rush of people taking their work systems home and modifying it for their environment. And from a security standpoint, we had to react real quickly and say, no, you can't do that. We have policies and procedures for taking equipment and utilizing it. So specifically answering your question, we've had to zigzag and address many areas because of the pandemic and the remote situation.
Right, right. And I think now, you know, a lot of CISOs and a lot of industries, not only healthcare, are having to go back and look at their security controls and reevaluate what they have in place in the light of a remote workforce and in the light of a changed delivery model, and perhaps none more so than healthcare. My wife just yesterday was making a telehealth appointment, right? Because she didn't want to go into the doctor's office. And I think that's, you know, that's impacted a large percentage of the population. So I want to move on to security operations and bring Joe into the conversation here. Why is it improved automation so badly needed, Joe, in the healthcare operations space? What are you seeing?
Well, what I see is being a small startup and with a lot of my clients is that there's a lack of funding and obviously a lack of staffing as well, and then a reduction due to budget cuts due to COVID. So we're not having as many people looking at the pane of glass. So it's very, very important that we have platforms in place to provide that automation and that machine learning as well to provide that level of visibility that we would get with a lot of people, you know, a lot of our staff looking at these systems. So it's critical more so now, especially for a small company, that we have these tools in place to let us know what's going on. Like, for example, you know, we are going and looking at a new SIM. We want to make sure that, you know, it doesn't, A, it's cost effective, B, it's going to be easy to set up, and C, that we have a multidisciplined administrator or engineer being able to monitor this for us. So, you know, so make sure that we're not going to have any threats that slip by us. So it's important that, you know, we're getting alerted, and not to, from, you know, even from an MBR perspective, you know, we can't sit there and look through logs all the time. We have to have the mechanisms in place to make sure that, you know, if there's something that's going awry in the environment, that we need to tackle it right away. So it's becoming very challenging because of lack of budget, and everything kind of trickles down from that. We have to be more and more creative in what we do to make sure we're monitoring the environment efficiently.
You know, according to the Cisco security report, annual cyber security report, you know, there's a 12x demand over supply for security professionals, and it's not getting any better, right? We are outnumbered, bad guys to good guys, 5 to 1. So we need AI-based automation in order to alert us to these things. We need to remove the false positives on our existing SIM and alerting technologies, right? And we need a seamless automation using AI, ML, whatever, right the way from, you know, the patient diagnosis in healthcare, right the way through IT, through to operations. So yeah, I would concur. Just as a brief round robin to my panelists, 30 seconds each or 20 seconds each on parting thoughts about what each of you see for increased AI and automation across the sector. Benoit, you started, perhaps you could lead us off. Earth calling Dr. Benoit.
Sorry. I'm unmuting myself. I work in radiology, and radiology is the field at the forefront of AI applications in medicine. And so we're using AI in so many aspects of our profession. And so right now, you know, I think any new developments that we're going to see, the fastest moving field that we're going to see is going to be in radiology, and it's going to make a huge change in our work. And hopefully we'll be at the forefront of all other fields of medicine in the development of AI.
Great, thank you. Mike.
You know, automation and artificial intelligence solutions are really truly making an impact by really streamlining a lot of workflow processes and really helping reduce clinical burnout as we see. You know, so the future and the transformation of the acceleration of digital transformation is really gonna take a massive play. And again, you know, a lot of these healthcare organizations are really focusing on their overall digital strategy. And we're continuing to see a lot of incorporations when it comes to automation and artificial intelligence.
Great, great. Thank you for that. Esmond.
Yeah, I would agree entirely with what you just heard there from Michael and Benoit, and indeed earlier from Joe and Powell. Thank you for the opportunity. I certainly would also encourage you, as you heard Powell touch upon, to partner strategically with the right vendor that hopefully can help you. Make sure that you're measuring that vendor so they're not overselling or overpromising. But a lot of this is it's hard to foster that talent when you need to jump to light speed and you haven't necessarily had 20 or 30 years of experience building this out. This is relatively new, and it's certainly opportunities for vendors and companies like Cylera and others.
Yeah, we used to talk about an internet year being a couple of months back in the .com era of the late 1990s, early 2000s. I think we probably need to coin a new phrase around AI and automation for the next era, but things are certainly changing very quickly. Powell, a few parting thoughts.
Yeah, what I will be looking for in the future is AI to help my staff augmentation. I cannot hire an army of people to do analysis, and therefore I'm going to look for AI to take on that role. Simple as that.
Great, great, perfect. And Joe.
Yeah, so just to echo my thoughts earlier, that it's the limited staffing that really impact us the most. So we want to make sure that we're getting the right tools in place, that we're mature enough to get the right tools in place. So we have a few people or a few of our staff to make sure that they are running it efficiently, because you know, the day of MSSPs are expensive. So sometimes you just have to take it in-house and run it there and make sure that it's working efficiently. So
cool. So some great demand and a rosy future, so it looks, Phelan, for AI and increased automation across healthcare. So with that, I'd like to thank my panelists for sharing their expertise this afternoon, and hand the mic back to Phelan. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. We got some lovely comments in the audience. Rachel says great insights. I'm starting everyone off with a virtual clap. I think we need a bit of a sound thing to press for the virtual clapping, but no, I think this is great. And you know, later in the year, in November, you know, you and I are working on a healthcare specific event. So I'd like to think that we can collect a lot of the topics that we've been going through these last few months and let it culminate in that. Because I always find with these panels, they could just go on because there's so much more to say.
Oh, absolutely. And I think we could have gone for a good hour here just on the subjects that we selected to talk about today. So look forward to rejoining you back in November.
Lovely. Well, Richard, Esmond, Powell, Joe, Benoit, Michael, thank you very much for a great panel.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
I will see you in the audience. And actually, talking about audience, I'm just moving everyone to go into the audience as it happens. Nearly there. That's what happens with these mega panels. Talking about audience, I have noticed that Kenny is there in the audience, and I wanted to say to Kenny, you know who you are. Please send my, well, it's lovely to welcome you, and please send my regards to Brian and Ashley. I thought I would take the opportunity to say that to Kenny, who's been there, you know, for the whole day. So thanks for being such a great participant. And right, so we have one fantastic presentation left, and then one ultimate panel. For our next presentation, I'm very pleased to welcome to the stage Steward Phillips, who is the Global Cybersecurity Practice Lead at HP Inc. Professional Services.